we think that it's important that we all introduce ourselves. So I'm just going to do a brief welcome. I'm Representative Donna Oberlander. I'm the Majority Policy Chairman, and it is my distinct pleasure to be in Butler County this morning with Representative Marci Mostello. She's going to introduce herself last because she's going to then kick it off to a couple other people. But if we could go ahead and start at this end of the table, if you would just briefly introduce yourself, and we do need you to speak into the mics, and you are in control of your mic. Don't let it be fearful.
I'll show you my name. It's Janice Picosdi-Luffy. I'm a controller of Bear Metallurgical Company, which is a part of the steel industry. We're located in East Butler, so I'm happy to be here. Thank you for the invitation.
Good morning. I'm Leslie Oshie. I'm one of the Butler County Commissioners.
Hello, I'm Ruth Purcell. I'm with the BC3 Butler County Community College Education Foundation.
Hello, I'm Barb Gleim. I'm a representative from the 199th Cumberland County.
Good morning. I'm Philip Anderson. I'm co-chair of the Butler County Manufacturing Consortium, also a director of production at Butler Technologies.
Good morning. I'm Torrin Ecker. I'm a representative from Adams and Cumberland County.
Shutting my mic off for me.
I know how you get, man.
I'm Representative Nelson, Westmoreland County.
I'm Tommy Sankey from Clearfield and Cambria County. Sorry for my tardiness. I have young children.
Good morning. I'm Jim Marshall. Thanks, Donna. Good morning. I'm Jim Marshall. I represent the 14th Legislative District, parts of Butler and parts of Beaver counties.
Oh, that's right, I'm last.
Good morning, everyone. Jim Struzzi, State Representative, Indiana County. Just a real quick background. I lived in Butler for a number of years. I was a reporter for the Butler Eagle, and I was also the Community Relations Coordinator for PennDOT District 10. So I know your community pretty well. So happy to be here. Thanks.
Good morning. My name is Carrie Courtney, and I'm from AK Steel right down the street. So happy to be here.
Hi, good morning. Tim Challensworth. I'm with 26 Incorporated.
Good morning. I'm Steve Rummel with 26 Incorporated in Saxonburg.
Jim Rigby, 71st District, Cambria County.
Good morning. Kim Gaur, County Commissioner.
Jordan Grady, Butler County. Is this working? Butler County Chamber of Commerce.
I'm Joe Saylor, Butler County Economic Development.
Hi, I'm Joyce Cully, Controller for United Plate Glass out in Butler.
Yourself before?
Yeah, sure,
okay.
sure. Hi, I'm Court.
Thank you. We have a couple late comers coming in. Dan Vogt and his wife.
Sorry.
I'm so glad.
I'm accommodating.
Oh, no.
Rearranging.
Oh, okay.
You can slide down if we need to.
We're good?
Well, I just want to say good morning and thank you all for coming out today. I'm really proud of this place. I'm proud to be from Butler County, especially the 11th District is where I've lived for 49 years. And we really do have a big agenda today, and we do. This is why, you know, when Representative Chairman Oberlander and I talked about bringing people to Butler, I just wanted them to see what we can showcase. And some of the companies that we're going to see, I see Angela just walked in from Turby Twist and Joyce Cully from United Plate Glass, that we've got a lot going on in Butler County, and I really want the representatives from out east to see what we've got going on. You know, the reason I chose this place was no accident. There's a lot going on here, as Mr. Spiker said. Of the 15 programs they have, they're very busy. I'd love to see more students involved. And the one thing I noticed while walking around here, this was about a month ago, the pride the kids had and the pride the students had in what they were doing. The welding program, the HVAC program, the electrical program, just they were so excited to talk about the projects they were doing. And really that's why, you know, brought everybody here. But, you know, we... I forget what I was going to say. Wait a minute. Sorry. Oh, the one thing I wanted to say was, you know, there's always the connection between education and businesses, which is why I'm so glad Ruth is here from BC3. We've got a great community college, and it's one thing that I really want to do while in office is work with career technical education with VOTEX to make sure that we've got a workforce that's prepared and to go out and to work for the AKs, the 26s, the United Plate Glasses, that they're ready to go as soon as they're done. And I know BC3 provides one heck of an education, as does the VOTEX. So that's really why I wanted you all to come to Butler and to really learn about what we have here. But with that, I do want to thank you, Chairman, for coming to Butler, as I've said. And I wanted to introduce also our county commissioners because they work so well with all of you in this room. And I didn't know, Leslie, I'm sorry I didn't ask you before, if you could just say a few words also about the great things we have, and Kim also, if you wanted to have a few minutes with it.
Well, thank you, Marci. I think probably the most important thing for us to highlight right now is the fact that we have a very active, newly developed over the last couple of years growth collaborative that is working intensely on figuring out the ways to connect the business community to the other aspects of the community that are important, and coordinating efforts to grow the economy here and in the region, and also connecting regionally with our fellow counties around us. And so that group this year actually is very much focused on workforce. Because everywhere we traveled over the last several years, we did multiple sort of listening sessions with businesses and with municipalities and with emergency responders, the whole 9 yards. And no matter what happens, it all ties back to the challenges for workforce. And so that has been a primary focus and concern for us, and we continue to work with all of our school districts, along with the #1 community college in the Commonwealth, just have to add that in there, and Slippery Rock University, because as Commissioner Gaur always highlights, we are one of the only counties that has both a community college and a state university in the county. So the opportunities are pretty much endless here, and what we recognize is that it's going to be important to reach down even further in the grades to be able to start to prepare children earlier for the types of jobs and careers that await them, because this is the workforce that's untapped. And in reading some recent reports, I think maybe Commissioner Gaur wants to comment on that, but what we noted was that businesses who were trying to work with K through 12 found that maybe some of the economic development drivers and businesses were really focused on the college level, but we believe that it is important that we continue to work and reach out to the students who are really coming up. And what I have found in my past work through United Way with education and the VOTEC here is that the earlier that we can interest them in technical training, the quicker they're more willing to get into it. So, and we found that to be a fact. And so we just welcome the opportunity to be here and join with you in whatever efforts we need to focus on in policy. Kim? A mic there.
Good morning. Thank you, Representative. We appreciate the opportunity to be here today, and as Leslie said, we work with our school districts closely in trying to help them provide the resources and tools that they need to prepare our students, because one of the most challenging aspects of K through 12 education is preparing students for future jobs that currently do not exist. So it's they are trying to come up with a curriculum that deals with that type of preparation, where it's not a guessing game, but they're just trying to provide what it is that they feel is necessary. And they're listening to business, but as the inflection report from the Allegheny Conference suggests, only 1 in 10 businesses is really looking at K through 12 education, as far as like providing a internship, apprenticeship, mentorship, any type of business experience. And so if that's the case, then we need to change that attitude. And one of the difficulties is businesses trying to get into the school day. The schools, as you know, and I know you've heard from all the testing and the PSSA testing, or the Keystone exams, their schedule is just solid. They don't have a lot of time. You see schools that are cutting out curriculum pertaining to the arts and music and the softer skills, but those are all necessary for helping to shape and influence a young person. Those skills are just as important, and so we appreciate the opportunity and the opportunity to share with you today about some of the good things that are happening. We have a lot of good partnerships with the community colleges and even with Beaver Community College, and we can share about that a little later on. Thank you.
Excellent. I know that we also have another commissioner joining us, so if you want to go ahead and introduce yourself, Kevin.
Kevin Boozle, I'm the third commissioner in Butler County. So I just want to say thank you for doing this. I think it brings light to something that we've known has been true. My background coming to Vo-Tech for 4 years and then going on to community college, Indiana University. I've lived the role of changing the dynamics of a family that moved from a blue collar into a more non-traditional work, into white collar. So there is a path to do that, but not everyone has taken that path, nor is it presented to them. So I think that there's workforce demands on both ends. I think that we need to pay attention to both, and I really do commend you for doing this. I think that making the connection, as my other commissioners have mentioned already, is between the schools and to the workforce. So we're all willing to do that. It's a matter of working together to make sure that we're doing it well and efficient. So pulling groups like this together to be able to talk through that and making it easier for families to understand. I just talked to a family the other day that didn't realize that our community college had scholarships. So that tells me a lot that there needs to be some education there. I think that the trades here, I went 4 years for carpentry here and ended up as an elementary school teacher. So how that works for people, I don't know. But I also was the teacher that put what I called hammers in hands, and basically young kids that had hammers and built and understood mathematics and measuring and all those things. So you're putting a practical skill in an elementary school from day one. Some of the school teachers don't have that experience. They didn't come from that background. They don't understand that. And I think that it's our job to make sure that all walks of life are represented, however that looks, whether it's getting them into the unions and letting them know that there's availability of that type of workforce, or vice versa, getting all the students to go through each one of the levels of practices and trades and high school work. I think that if we get the what I would call the hybrid group, I think that there's a 2-year degree with some vocational background that would be very tangible for people to put to work right now. And I think that's the group that is going to thrive immediately. But that's just from experience. Thank you.
Excellent. You've got a great group of commissioners, as you're well aware. And I want to just share a couple of thoughts about what we've been doing over the past year as a policy committee, the reasons why we do these types of things. And Commissioner, you mentioned it, the listening sessions. These are our listening and learning sessions. And it's important for us to go directly to the businesses and to the educators and find out what's working, what's not working, and how we can partner in a better way. And as the Republican caucus, we were the champions of a program called, it was a package of bills, which we called the Good Jobs for PA. We did a number of bills last session. I'm sorry, the beginning of this session. It feels like a long time ago, doesn't it? Sorry. It was actually in 2019. And so there's been a little bit of time for that package of bills to be enacted and start to be out there in the trenches. And so it's time for us to come back and learn more. How's that working for you? How can we improve that? What should we be doing differently? So I really want this to be more of an interactive conversation. I'm thankful that the businesses are here and that you have the educators and you have government that is willing to listen. So some of the issues that were identified by you as participants was workforce. So I hear you're already partnering well on that. I also was informed that shortage of employees is an issue, and certainly everywhere we've gone across the Commonwealth, that's been a general theme. Would you agree, members? And how you approach that and what you're doing would be of interest to us. You know, how are you looking for different ways to attract those employees? I think somebody said digging deeper down in, how are we re-educating, moving people up the workforce ladder. And then unemployment compensation was one of the other issues that was brought to my attention. Those are just three that were identified. We're more than happy to hear from you on any number of issues that are of interest to you. So with that, who wants to kick off some of their thoughts or concerns? Sure, go ahead.
What we're finding in our county and across the region is businesses taking it upon themselves to do their own training of employees because of whether it's state regulation or overreach. So what we're doing in our county is we're establishing partnerships, private and public partnerships. We're doing partnerships and a lot of collaboration with our community colleges and the private sector. And one example is our aviation program out at the airport. There's a shortage of pilots, and so we have two private flight schools, aviation schools, and they have approximately 250 students. And there's quite an interest, and so we have our Butler Community College as well as Beaver Community College, and we have formed a partnership to work with High Flight Aviation at our airport. And they have 141 accreditation, which is a national accreditation where you can go to school there and you can get your private pilot's license. And then we also have a working relationship with both Republic Airlines and Wisconsin Air, and they're both regional carriers to the big carriers, the big three airlines, major airlines, and so those regional carriers are hiring our students. So we are the only Part 141 accredited flight school in Western Pennsylvania. I believe there's one out east somewhere. But it's very successful, and it's just a matter of us all working together and collaborating and providing resources. We have our airport authority has established a scholarship program for students who attend both. Wherever they are, they can make application, and we award approximately 3 scholarships a year to help defer costs for those students for their flight lessons. And it's been very successful, and it's a template that can be emulated elsewhere throughout the Commonwealth. So we're very proud of that and happy for the collaboration to see 2 schools come together, 2 community colleges working hand in hand together with private and our airport authority and so on.
Commissioner, would you elaborate on, was it the businesses that identified the need and went to the schools, or vice versa? How did the students find out? You had mentioned about the challenges of trying to get into the K through 12. How's that working? Can you kind of dig into that a little bit?
As far as the flight school goes, business, there's a shortage of pilots. There's 155,000 pilots that'll be retiring in the coming year, and so it's a solution. It's a way for us to use a resource in our county, our airport, and provide a solution toward workforce development as far as aviation related fields. You can also get credits for aviation mechanic, any aviation related, working at the tower. Beaver Community College has an air traffic control program. And one of the good things is this fall we'll be implementing for juniors and seniors in high school. Butler Community College will be implementing a 28 credit course syllabus for aviation-related courses. And so those students that are juniors and seniors in high school can get 28 college credits prior to graduation from high school. So that'll be very helpful, and they can make, application also. Some of them can have their commercial pilot's license by the time they graduate from high school.
Representative Nelson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. A question for the employers and with the school itself on numbers. If we look at the 3 to 5 year trend for the number of hires you're looking to bring on and the number of graduates from the school, are we meeting the need, exceeding the need? How's that ratio working?
As an employer, Madam Chairman, looking forward to everyone being able to come out to take a tour of the facility. United Plate Glass, along with Angela, who's next door at Turby Twist. So the manufacturing is alive and well in Butler County, and right now we could take about 15 to 20 employees if we could find them. It's wonderful that the unemployment is low and people aren't seeking us out like they used to. You used to have a plentitude of people to pick from. So we're trying to think outside the box. We've reached out to, I know the community college, my HR director is looking to find how can we get apprentice programs started that we could bring somebody in from BC3. The VOTEC court, I know she reached out to your successor to see what can we get into the VOTEC. We need to let these young kids know that maybe college isn't in their realm, that you can get an opportunity in manufacturing. You can come in on the ground floor. Our plant managers just turned 29 years old. He got his associates at BC3 while working with us, and now he's our plant manager. He's running 3 buildings for us, and he's got a great career. There's a lot of opportunities there. You come in on the ground floor, you can work your way up, and the potential for income is sometimes better than what you could get with a college degree. So they just need to know those opportunities are there, and we haven't thought about I didn't think about the high school, starting from elementary school and up, but getting into the VOTEC, getting the college and letting them know these careers are there for these kids. You just got to let them know the opportunities there. We have about 200 employees, or about 165 employees in Butler. We have a location in Charlotte, North Carolina, with about 50 employees. Same situation there. It's all over the country, and we're just opening a facility in Frederick, Maryland, currently. Found some great employees down there, but the pool is a little smaller than we'd like. So we just, as employers, you just can't wait for people to come to you. We got to get out and find them because there's a great need and great opportunities, and we're continuing to grow. As you come, you'll see we're expanding onto our buildings. The business is there. We just need the people to produce the product, which I'm sure a lot of you other employers are in the same predicament. So trying to think outside the box.
Thank you very much. Representative Mostello.
I just had a question for Mr. Spiker and Ruth Purcell, also from BC3. What are you doing to attract kids? I mean, we've just been hearing about K through 12, and that's kind of where it all starts. What's the VOTEC doing? What sort of outreach? What are you doing to attract more students into the VOTEC who can then probably go on to BC3? I mean, what is it? What are the hurdles that you're facing that maybe we're not seeing? We see it now. It's great opportunities, but when you're 15, 16 years old, you don't see it.
Well, first of all of the districts throughout the state
were created K-12 guidance plans, and part of those plans was making sure that all students were aware of opportunities at their local VOTEC career center. So that's step one. So the exposure is happening much earlier than it ever has before. As far as our specific recruiting, we set up the recruiting tours for every freshman in the county to tour our facility and see what we have to offer. As far as working with Butler County Community College, we are so fortunate to have the #1 community college in the state right in our backyard. We have many articulations with them, which is nice. And then we've just recently set up a college within a tech school where kids have the opportunity to earn 15 credits online while they're still here. So it's all building blocks. It really is. So it's just a matter of really getting the word out. And we talked about manufacturing. Our precision machining program, every single student who isn't going on to post-secondary is already employed. I mean, they take every senior, they take every junior, they take every sophomore. The sophomores are working weekends and evenings because it's that hard to find people. It really is. Unfortunately, we're not full. We could probably have another 10, 15 students in that program and place all of them overnight. So it's just a matter of really, I know in this community, we're lucky because we are highly regarded, this facility. It's just a matter of everyone understanding that there's opportunities for all students, not just specific students. So I wish I had that that magic wand that I could make people understand that. So, but it's really, we are progressing. We're seeing our numbers increase every year a little bit. Not huge, but we've picked up 5 to 10 students a year the last 5 years. And as we're looking to add some programming, we're a little landlocked. We don't have room to expand, so we have to move things around. So while we do that, we're going to create some space. We're going to looking to add some programs. So we're reaching out to the community to see what the business community needs, what the state needs, what the nation needs as we look to add programming. But it's a group effort. It really is.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair and Marci. We're doing a lot of things at the community college, our affiliations with the VOTECs, with all the high schools actually. However, we're doing some really creative things. And one of the things that, and I just had the opportunity to attend a national conference on workforce, one of the things speakers reiterated again and again, we have to reach parents. And we have to get past that mindset that everybody needs a 4-year college degree. Because even though I've worked at Slippery Rock, I have a number of degrees, my kid, that's not for everybody. And the opportunities that are out there without going into the debt and pursuing maybe interests that aren't of the young persons. So I think that's critical. The other thing we find is funding. If you look at scholarships, we do not have a lot of scholarships at BC3 for certificate programs. That's an issue. All our scholarships are private, so that kind of depends on individual donors. The other thing, federal monies, and I don't even know if FIA covers a lot of the certificate and workforce type training. The community colleges nationally are advocating that the federal government, the Pell Grants, which a number of our students at BC3 receive, also extend to workforce training, to that person who's coming back to get retrained. They might be 25 years old. They're not your typical college student. So we're advocating for that because even though there are other sources of money, that becomes an issue for a lot of people to get that workforce training. We'll announce pretty soon a really creative approach because businesses do come to us and it all is about collaboration. So, and the final thing we're doing, and again, a lot of this is collaborative and resource driven. We were fortunate to have a nice donor a number of years ago make some money into our metrology program, which is a 2-year program. It's a science and measurement, not weather. And we have a real signature program. You get out after 2 years, you are ready to hit the ground. And your salaries can be $70,000, $80,000, $90,000 with a 2-year degree at BC3 prices of maybe $10,000. I mean, you just think of that return. So what we're doing with this gentleman's private donation is some real creative marketing. We're doing a lot of the things that Facebook and the political campaigns do. We can know when kids are attending a robotics fair. And we can get their cell phone data and we can target a message out to them. It's called geofencing. It's a little scary, but if you've ever been shopping and looking at a certain product and then, you find that product is appearing, it's our world, and those are some of the things we're doing. But again, that is very expensive. Right now, we're only doing it for metrology. So.
Sure, go ahead.
And just to add on to what Ms. Purcell was saying, we recently partnered with BC3 to offer an automotive technology training for adults. We had the backing from the dealerships. We had our facility with BC3. The only thing we didn't have, we had interest. The problem was funding because they couldn't afford it. We're talking about people who are displaced workers, they don't have the money, and the federal government will not provide grants for short-term training to get people back into the workforce. When we go to DC, we constantly ask, can you please reconsider this? Because this is the fastest way to get people back into the workforce, but we keep hitting a roadblock. And so it's huge. And we have the same problem with our welding. We have an adult welding program that we've been struggling to run. It didn't run again because there's interest, but it's expensive, and the federal money's not available for the short-term training.
Just from my federal background also, wasn't there TAA money involved if companies move out of town, wasn't
That's
there?
done, I think.
Oh, it's over with, okay.
Been spent.
I have a follow-up question as well, because I'm thinking about one of my specific constituents who actually worked in Butler County. The business went out. She was allotted, might have been the TAA money, was approved for botany or herbology or something, and started going through the process, and then the rug was ripped out from underneath her. We went through the process, and it was with Department of Labor and Industry, got her approved, and by that point, it was too late for the class. Is it federal or is it state? Does anyone know that? Because it seems like maybe it felt to me like the right hand didn't know what the left hand was doing, and by the time she got approved, it was too late for her to do that. She was already on to something else, and
Welcome to the Career Link Workforce Development Challenge.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, then we're all trying to put the right hand and the left hand together. I'm glad we're together this morning.
Yes.
Representative Glenn.
Hi, thank you, Marci, and Chairwoman Donna Oberlander. Recently in our area, we had a roundtable at an IU, and it had superintendents and community colleges and everybody there. And one of the things that was identified as a roadblock were graduation requirements. And so they have new graduation requirements where you have to take the Keystone exam, and I know that Ms. Gaur mentioned that. But then there's a point system for the VOTEX also in order to find out if they have enough points through their program to graduate. And I was wondering if you're finding any of that in Butler County an issue, and if you have any suggestions for it.
Well, first of all, the Keystones are not in effect just yet. And so a few years ago, we managed to get some legislation, Act 6, passed that created alternate graduation pathways for CTE students. That, once again, is only going to go into effect for the kids once that actually becomes a requirement. So no, we're not seeing anything because there's enough alternatives, because there's three main alternatives. One is that they're proficient on their end of program exam. The second is that they're earning an industry certification. And as we took a tour and I was explaining we are very industry certification driven here. Every single student has that opportunity to earn a nationally recognized industry cert, which puts them all above that bar. But even if there was that issue, there was a third alternative, which is the executive director and the superintendent get together and talk about this student individually and say, does this student have a high likelihood of success in industry? And there'll be times maybe a student is not a good test taker and for whatever reason didn't do well. But maybe is already employed, already has job prospects. And we can take that in consideration and the student will still graduate. So really Act 6 has that taken care of. So no, I'm not seeing any issues with respect to that at all, at least not on our end, and I don't anticipate any either.
Okay, thank you.
Representative Marshall?
Thank you, Donna. Representative Mostello and I were on the same page, so this is going to sound like the same question, but again, as to Mr. Spiker. I've toured this facility before and seen your classes, and it seemed like the businesses, especially with your machinist students, were scouting, I guess. They were really just reaching out to your school for new employees. My question really is, though, how do you drive your K-12 sending schools to send to you students? How are you interacting with the sending schools, and what students are you getting at the Career Tech?
Well, to answer the first question, as I said, we offer the ability for every single student in the county to see the facility. So, we aren't really necessarily driving it. We're opening up that opportunity, and then the sending districts are letting those kids come and take a look. And they're taking down barriers, I think, really, making sure there aren't things that are going to preclude a student who's interested from attending. And what was the second question that you had?
How do you attract the students? Like, are you really competing with the sending schools for certain students?
And you know what? The other thing you said was what type of students?
Right.
We are blessed. If you take a look, we have no academics here. We have 2-hour sessions. The students come, they train, and they go back and get their academics at their high school. So we have very few barriers here from the students in doing what they want to do. But with respect to that, the state still tracks how students who attend career centers do on their testing at the high schools, their keystone testing. And we are almost always in the top 5 of all career centers in the state in academics. So we are getting high academic students. So that really shows that there's not a barrier, that they're not precluding students. Now, I do understand that at other career centers that's not the case, but we are blessed here, really. We have 7 districts that really respect what we do and support us, and the truth, is really in the product. It really is. So we are fortunate. But I also want you to understand that, we serve all students. All students can be successful here, not just high academic students. And, and a lot of students maybe who might have a learning disability, but will still thrive in this environment. And, we support those students as well. So, but as far as reaching out, as I said, when the districts in our county put together their K-12 guidance plans, they did them here. And that was great because now you're talking about counselors at the elementary level, teachers and administrators at the elementary level seeing our facility. We made sure they toured the facility. As I always say, seeing is believing. And then they see what goes on. And it's a real quick story. When I got here as an administrator, I was surprised at how the recruiting took place here. And I said, every kid has to see it. Not every kid's going to come, but every kid has to see it. And there was a tremendous amount of pushback at the time. And one district in specific, the counselor said, this is a terrible idea. Well, they did. They toured every student. And that counselor wrote a letter saying, boy, was I wrong. Because here's what happened. With every student seeing the facility, the students who don't attend have a respect now for their classmates who do. Because this isn't what anyone thought it was, because they didn't know. So as I said, it was important, that education was important across the board, not just for the students who are going to attend, but for the students who aren't going to attend. And as I said, it really picked up the attitude. And we've seen our numbers increase since then. So that's pretty much our what we do. Now, we also do things like we'll go to like community nights and scheduling nights, and we'll go to middle school sometimes and put on presentations. The one thing we don't do is a lot of touring, because it's very disruptive. We will do the recruiting touring, but we can't have elementary schools and middle schools. That's all we would do is tour. And I'd made the comment, I said, we're not a museum and we don't have tours leaving on the hour because it shuts the programs down. It really does. For safety's sake, the teacher has to be involved. If they're involved with the tour, they're not involved with the students. So the rest of the districts understand that now. And so we come to them when they have interest at a earlier level to make sure there is that exposure. And we also do things. We've worked with the WIB, and we've created summer camps. We've created opportunities for students to come, have a breakfast here. We'll go to local industry, see what goes on. We've done several things like that, and the WIB has been very supportive with that. But we do reach out in just a lot of different ways.
Excellent answer and great leadership here, and to work with your schools in that manner, it's unique, and I think you'd be a great example to use across the Commonwealth. Thank you.
I love your comment about the students now respect the students here. And that seems like a key to me just from my district, which, by the way, the Gremlins, I see Perry, East Brady, those are my guys. So I take a little ownership here. Sugar Creek, Brady's Bend, I don't want anybody to feel left out. With that, Commissioner.
Yeah, I just wanted to add to that. So several years ago, when in my prior world with United Way, we had a women's mentoring group, and we worked with students at the junior high level. And we actually, we spent time with them not only touring manufacturing facilities and the building trades training centers, but we brought them at the junior high level to the VOTEC. And because typically they wouldn't experience the VOTEC until later. Interesting part about that was of the 11 students that we mentored and followed from 8th grade on, 9 out of the 11 came to VOTEC. Once they were introduced, 9 out of the 11, and then the most encouraging thing was years later, we kept in touch, and many of them went on to BC3. And so we'd be on the campus at BC and 3 and still see our students that we had mentored at that time. So the point was we had to get them out. They had to get into those facilities and see, because their image of manufacturing, even the teachers, we took the teachers on tour, and we put them on a bus and took them to the building trade centers in Pittsburgh. Then we did collaboratively work with the Career Link on that one, so they get 2 points there. But we literally took them, and there were teachers that were trying to leave and go become iron workers because they thought it was a much better position than what they were doing at the time. But I think once they were able to see it, and to see what was happening in those manufacturing facilities and realize the impact of the end product. In particular, the Oberg and 260, Oberg and Penn United that were doing products that ended up in medical implants that were knees and hips, and when you can see when they can see the impact that they're having, it makes that job much more impactful for them, or they realize that they're making a contribution versus just standing on some sort of an assembly line, because they understand then what that looks like, and they see the environment, and they see the cool technology that's now being used in the manufacturing field. So it made a difference, and that it'd be great if we can continue those things.
Thank you. Representative Struzzi.
Thank you. I guess my question is more for the employers. I think one of the challenges that we have, particularly in Western Pennsylvania, is our evolving demographics. Indiana County, we have the same issues that you do for the most part, with employers needing to fill positions and they can't do it. But my question is it because of a lack of quality candidates or a lack of candidates in general?
Yeah, who would like to take that one? Great.
It's a little of both. There aren't the number of candidates out there looking, but we have, and I'm sure the other employers here too, the pool is not as strong as it used to be, and you're hiring people that you probably never would have hired, 10 or 15 years ago, but you need bodies. You need people to come in and So you have to work with what you have to work with. So you'd love to have those quality candidates, but they're working elsewhere, and you got to try to attract them. But yeah, I would say you're just training a little bit more than you might have had to before. It's hard retention, hard to get them to stay once they come on board. Manual labor is part of manufacturing, and a lot of them don't really like the manual labor part. They want to sit behind a computer, so that's challenging as well, but it's a little of both. The quality candidates are definitely minimal. There's other candidates to work with. You just have to reach down and bring them back up and train them as hard as you can. So that's from our perspective. You fellas might have another?
Yeah, from a 2-6 perspective, I have to fully agree. You know, we probably have about 20 openings at any given time. And, you know, a few years ago, you know, maybe 4 or 5 years ago, the number of candidates coming in, you'd have a lot of applications. Nowadays, it's much, much fewer. And sometimes the quality, there are some gems in those applications, but a lot of times there's a lot of training that's needed. And really, I think when you mentioned the demographics, that's a key item, because the baby boomers, you know, we're all getting older, and there's a lot of retirees, and we're looking at a changeover of the workforce over the next 5-10 years. And you know, it's really critical that we're able to find the students and qualified candidates. You know, and these are anywhere from, you know, every level of the business. It's anywhere from, you know, I don't know, sweeping the floor to CNC machines to engineers and on up. It's across the board.
One of the things that we try to address in Indiana County, I was a Chamber of Commerce president before becoming a state representative. A lot of employers commented on the lack of soft skills. And it sounds like you have some great programs here aligning the businesses with the education and the opportunities, but do you teach soft skills? Do you teach work ethic? And how do you do that?
Work ethics.
Yeah.
I'm glad you mentioned that. Well, that lit me up, certainly. Work ethics, I find, is a very important thing. I'd like to see the educational institutions teaching work ethics. I'd like to see I'm old, so I call them kids. Anyhow, when a student comes to for a job application, in my case, they'll come in oftentimes with their graded work. I don't want to see what their graded work was in school. I want to know what they're capable of doing. And it would also be nice if they understood what the work environment is and what's expected of an individual that's getting paid to do a given job. Another thing that kids don't seem to understand, they're worried about paying for their loans for college. And if a business is doing well, and oftentimes if they see an individual that has good work ethics and is doing a good job for the company, if they have the potential, oftentimes the company will pay for their education, or at least assist them with it, because they have a desperate need for people with good work ethics. And that's very much what I'd like to see, in addition to the academic work and the hands-on work coming out of educational institutions. I would like to see a little more feedback with the educational institutions with the corporate world. Now, I find Butler County is very unique compared to other counties around, because we have the 3 areas of productivity running really strong in this area. We have agriculture, mining, and manufacturing. That represents our vital productive sector that generates the wealth for the state and for the nation. So we need to work on that very hard and have government support for a productive sector, so that we'll have the wealth that we need as a state and as a nation to meet our needs. And I'm seeing a marvelous turnaround now. I mean, I imagine most of you around here have seen a major change that's happened starting basically after a year of the Trump administration. We now have about the beginning of 2018, I saw a change occur, both on the academic side, because I work heavily with major universities, departments of biology, so I'm following that group. And on the supply side, we found that a lot of companies that we deal with are also doing much better now with a better business environment. So what else do I want to mention? America's GDP is tied to America's success as a country. And as long as we can, Butler County and basically the whole nation, produce a good networking, working together, dedicated spirit of improving our GDP and our productivity, I think the country's going to do fine. What scares me, if something upsets that, then we all in a heap of trouble.
Thank you.
Oh, I wasn't sure if he had directed the question over here as well. To answer your question, we teach work ethic every day, all day. You know, these students are working, they're coming to work here. So they're learning that literally through their physical behavior daily. As far as soft skills go, absolutely, that's built in. We, not just in what they do, but we actually have some online training through SB2 for just exactly what you're talking about, soft skills, so that they do learn those things that are important as well. And every student is learning to do a resume here, learning to do a cover letter, all those types of things for interview skills, putting together a portfolio. And these students are going to show what they have done here and the certifications that they have earned, but be able to also show what kind of value added they can deliver to that next employer.
Thank you. Representative Sankey?
Thank you. I think, my district's very rural, and it's not that much of an anomaly that whether you're wearing a suit, whether you're swinging a hammer or making pizzas, everybody's looking for employees, large business, small businesses, and nearly no one I know is paying minimum wage because you're not going to compete for employees if you are. But my question is more geared towards the school. With the shale boom in the West, and I'll ask a couple questions and I'll let you go ahead. Do you guys have like a plastics program? I'm not as familiar with the curriculum. And the reason I say this, we visited Penn College of Technology, which clearly has more resources under Penn State. But, they've been working directly with Dutch Shell already on plastics and polymer technology. And with you guys being so close, and I don't know, you're limited on room. I don't know how much you can just jump into a program, but I feel like that's, for Western Pennsylvania at least, that's really a future, and I would rather see it in somebody's backyard to have a pool. And they're in large demand in that industry at Penn College and others. So if you can talk about that a little bit.
Sure. First of all, unlike the average high school, career centers just can't add programming. All of our programming has to be approved, and it has to fall under certain guidelines. We can't really just create something. We can't see a need and say, we're going to do this immediately. Adding a program at a career center is a 2-year process. And it has to, like I said, it has to fall under certain guidelines. It has to be dedicated as a high priority occupation. And this is all dictated by things that are well out of our control. So for instance, something like a plastics program like that would not be something, that would be a little too specialized for a facility like ours to add. But what we do offer is all of the supplemental things, the things that go into the building of that. We have our construction cluster, our manufacturing, and those students are still learning skills that they can take and apply in other arenas. So something like that, probably you're not going to necessarily see. And another perfect example of that is with respect to gas and oil. A lot of career centers jumped on, we're going to have a gas and oil program. And they spent a lot of money, and what happened? We're done. A lot of the drilling is already over. They brought people from out of state. We couldn't react fast enough. By the time the career centers reacted, started the programs, they were already manned by people out of state. The drilling is done, and that's gone. And so those programs are dying on the vine now because it just wasn't realistic. So career and technical education is not set up to react that fast, nor is it set up to react that specifically. It's more, I say, we're creating people who can work in a broad amount of trades and translate. Does that make sense? Okay.
Can I speak for the community college? I think
Sure.
we can ramp up a little quicker. We do have, thank you, advisory groups for every program. And when the shale came to Butler County, we did have, and it was a Department of Labor grant, where we did a lot of the training for the people who actually did the drilling. We also got great support from the industry too, because they needed it. You know, we're still getting money from XTO. Right now, we're not training the people who are out on the well site so much, but it's going into CNC and Fab Lab and things like that. So we're also doing a lot of ancillary services. We're working closely with Beaver Community College, but I think one of the great things about community college is not only can we respond quickly, but we really do collaborate. You know, it's not just a buzzword. You know, the aviation program, great idea. We couldn't come up with our, you know, the exact same thing that Beaver's doing. So we are looking at, in addition to those technical, the plastics program, what else will this need when that cracker plant comes to Beaver County? And it's so close to us. You talk to real estate agents, and they want us to look at training more real estate people because, again, they're seeing, you know, it's like the Levi Strauss example when the gold rush, you know, and that's going to be our space.
Thank you. Representative Nelson?
Thank you, Madam Chair. This question may not be excessively popular with the community college or the, you know, the training school. We've traveled a lot through the state listening to employers and the recognized shortfall that they have in being able to find employees. And there's a frustration that has been expressed and, you know, throughout. I'm in Westmoreland County. Our technical school struggles with recruiting the students. They can't produce the students. They can't draw. There's 5 schools here that are not meeting, you know, even the local need. From an employer perspective, alternate existing programs like the WEDNet PA, is it the, yes, I think the WEDNet PA, where an employer, after an employee passes the drug test and is brought on, enhancing a program that would give the employer more control to invest in that employee's individual training, either in an offset in their wages, or they could assign that employee's, let's say, training voucher to a technical school. There's been frustration expressed that the administrative side of some of the job programs is eating up a lot of those resources, and if employer had a way to invest directly with the employee and receive, you know, an offset in some way through, let's say, a program like the WEDNet, that would be a little bit better because every employer is its own unique fingerprint. I think of AK Steel and working at your facility. From an employer side, could you touch on potentially your desire to maybe have more flexibility to train within your own workforce, you know, or that type of subject, you know?
Yeah, I mean, we've taken full advantage of the WEDNet program for quite a few years at AK Steel, and actually, even when I was at 2-6, we took advantage of WEDNet, and that's been quite a few years, so it's a popular program for sure. With AK Steel, right now, we're going through, as everybody knows, the acquisition coming up this week. Thank you to the 3 commissioners for writing a letter to President Trump for us to kind of back us and support us in some of the challenges we're going to face. So, but with regards to the WEDNet program, I mean, any resources or anything we can do to further train and teach our employees and grow them internally, we want to do that. You know, we try to take advantage of every opportunity that we have. Any of the other employers like to address that?
Well, I think it's a great program. The administrative side is always a challenge. But, you know, to be able to bring a fresh recruit in and send them, if we had the ability to get some funding for training and send them off to VOTEC, BC3, wherever to get, whether it's CNC training or whatever kind of training that's going to enhance their skills, I think it's a great idea. And, you know, I was just recently made aware of at a local high school that is actually teaching their 9th graders to run a CNC machine. And I thought, that is really great. And that's the kind of stuff that we really need to get these kids excited about the trades.
So in just building, there's a, you know, in our CTC, they have evening programs where, you know, local small and mid-sized employers are, you know, applying or they're assigning those WEDNet dollars to the training facility so that they can manage like the apprenticeship paperwork and, you know, there's these new hybrids. If we were going to expand the WEDNet program, would there need to be adjustments in how employers were allowed to assign, because I think there are certain parameters that, because it's not for all types of training, or, and I'm not working daily with WEDNET. Years ago we did, and I know they said, well, you can't do safety training with it, but does the WEDNET program itself need to be adjusted so an employer has either less documentation requirements or more flexibility? Or is it fine the way it is?
Yeah, I don't know, maybe you want to
Yeah,
answer that.
I mean, honestly, at AK, we haven't run into issues directly with that. I mean, I think there's opportunities for us to work with BC3. I know we met with them maybe 6 months ago about some things that if we had the opportunity to share some of those funds that we get with them to help them to purchase equipment to do the training at their facilities, that would obviously be beneficial, I think, to the whole community.
I've heard that that one is basically the easiest of all of the programs, and that we should replicate that across every program. Phil, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, actually, what you just said is one of the comments I was going to make. I know I work at Butler Technologies, small company, 70 employees, and those, it is very easy to use that system. One of the things we use it for is not just newer employees, but as we do succession planning and who's going to be the future of our company, identifying those future leaders and using those dollars for leadership training and development as well. So it's been a great program as far as I know, and I'm not intimately involved with the paperwork, but there have been no issues on our end.
And it's great to hear that, because I think total dollars that the state invests in WEDNET is significantly smaller than in other areas, and that we've been working to try to expand that. That way it allows the employer to have a little bit more control, to be a little more responsible to meet those needs and use existing systems. So it's good to hear some positive feedback about that program.
Thank you. Representative Ecker?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I just want to touch base on just two things here, and Representative Nelson was kind of touching on it. Coming from my side of the state, Representative Gleim and I are kind of from the eastern side of the state, South Central, and I could speak in our particular area, York and Adams County, the business community has invested very heavily in the CTE program itself. So we talked a little bit about funding earlier. We have a pretty large manufacturing base there as well, and they saw a need. Our local manufacturers saw a need, obviously, of employees, and really we only had one option. We have a CTE center in York County, and it's quite a distance from most of our schools in our part of the county. And they saw a need of going right to the school districts themselves, invested heavily in the infrastructure. So with the help of the chamber, the business community, and then the schools, the business community actually invested in some of the infrastructure in these schools, and that program has been then replicated in one of my homes. In fact, my home school district in New Oxford, where they built a state-of-the-art CTE center with no taxpayer money, no government funding. It was all private investment in the community, because the businesses realized, they got to have a little skin in the game as well, and they invested in this facility and quite honestly, it's a state-of-the-art facility. And again, it's just that we talk about private-public partnership. This is a perfect example of the business community investing in their community, realizing that this is going to be a pipeline of employers. So I guess I know we kind of alluded to it here a little bit. There's been some working with the schools, but I'm just wondering if there's any investment from the business community into the CTCs, or to this center, or to the community college.
I think we've been real fortunate. The program you just mentioned, the auto technician, I mean, it was a great example. But again, we could not get the young, and it wasn't even young people. We could not get the people interested, although it was business put in money for scholarships, business put in equipment, and that always is a hang up when we look at technical programs, at least from the community college perspective, which is why in that program we were going to use the facilities of the VOTEC. So, I mean, there are great examples. I think I mentioned XTO with the college continuing to fund. We do get businesses, and we do that training where customized training where an individual business can come to BC3 and say, we need to teach people how to make styrofoam cups. What can you do? There's a charge for that, and I will tell you, I am not exactly sure who pays that charge, if it's the individual business or if they get some, I know there is some WEDNET money out there. But, we try to involve the businesses as much as possible. I'm trying to think of a more recent program other than Auto Tech that we have the businesses involved in.
Some of your equipment for metrology, didn't it come from the business?
Oh, yeah. Oh, I forgot about that. Yes, we did. I mentioned that metrology program. Again, the equipment, we have an alum who works with the National Institute of Standards who got a piece of $90,000 equipment. I mean, even things, nursing is so big right now, and it is considered a technical program. We just had a foundation purchase one of the Resusci babies. They're no longer called Resusci babies. This little piece of equipment was $70,000. And, healthcare programs need several. They need Resusci baby, Resusci man, Resusci lady, the whole family. There are some differences. So those are really the issues that I think kind of stymie up. Business will step in, but it's a big investment we're asking for, and it is constantly changing. Resusci baby's going to be outdated. They're really little robots, but it'll be outdated probably in 3 years.
Well, we're very fortunate. We've been able to utilize a lot of state and federal money to purchase the equipment around here to keep us state of the art. But local businesses have stepped in many times to donate. Our machining program has many machines that have been donated. Our heavy equipment program has a whole slew of, large diesel engines and transmissions that have been donated. So we really do appreciate that. We haven't had anything, as large a scale as you've had out in York County where they've actually built a facility. But, our business community is very active and very supportive and have always stepped up when we've needed them.
Great. And I think that's, I think when government and business work together, I think great things get accomplished, and I just wanted to highlight that point, and it's good to see that that's happening here as well. And one of the another success is with the ITC program and schools or businesses investing, so they get a little bit in exchange as well. One last thing I just want to touch base on again, and we've talked about it a little bit, but being that I am the millennial in the room, it seems like, which I didn't realize I was until I got to Harrisburg. But in any event, I think, we talk about a generation of kids, we'll say, students who, were given that mindset, you need to go to a four-year school, you need to go to a four-year school, and realizing that some of those degrees now aren't giving them the kind of kind of career pathway, family-sustaining job they need. I think it's really important, and it sounds like you folks have been trying to do this, but I think it's really important to stay focused on that group of folks and trying to recruit those individuals back into these programs to show that there are some family-sustaining jobs out there, and whether that's the business community marketing to them or also these schools. I think that whole generation of folks right there is looking to figure out a way to pay off this college debt and get a quick degree somewhere that they can actually use and have a family-sustaining job. So I know it's a tough group to kind of reach, but the geofencing and stuff, that's great ideas. I think from my perspective, I think you really continue with that demographic, that generation of students, because I think there's a workforce there and waiting. Thanks.
Commissioner Boozle.
I want to go back to what he stated there about pulling people back into this manufacturing and healthcare, and I think that there's an entire generation of people that are struggling in entry-level work and could be pulled up, moving up generationally. So when we forget about that, or we don't open up those jobs to folks coming out of high school and those entry-level jobs, and these folks are still there, that population needs a little bit of training, but they don't know how or where. They haven't been in the college field. They don't know that the great VOTEC here has evening classes. They don't. So we have to merge that gap between people that are stuck in a position and moving them into a career, and that opens up new jobs for people that are ready to move in and get those soft skills that somebody was speaking of earlier. The whole system got kind of jammed up, in my opinion, and I think that there's an opportunity there for us to grab a hold of those folks and empower them to move forward. And quite frankly, I was at one of the things that makes me think of this, I was at a hardware store, and one of the gentlemen was so knowledgeable about some of the plumbing and the electrical, the fittings, and this. I'm like, and you're working here for how much money a day, right? So, and I started spouting off some of these things. He had no idea. And so, we're missing this whole revolution, I guess, of moving people through this system. I don't know what the answer is to grab. I mean, you can grab one starfish and throw them back in the water, but what's the approach as a community? How do we move everyone together? And I think that going back a little, somebody mentioned, I think Joyce mentioned about dipping a little further into the well to get people, right? So one of the things that I think we should be very proud of in Butler County is our GED program, and moving people through that system to give them the opportunity to go into better workforce, including in our jail system that has lots of GED programming and lots of success. And going a little further into that, we've talked about adding in additional education. So, you have this whole population that were scarred by some criminal background, blush with legal systems, that are now oftentimes being employed. And they have to go through legal literacy, and they have to get that off the record so they can move forward. Otherwise, they get stuck in the system. They can only reach so far. So I think that collectively there is a roadmap to get multiple groups through this, and it's not easy. I mean, to try to explain this to a parent, you're going to spend a couple of hours, right? Try to explain this to an employer that they want to make the investment in this population to move them up, and they want to make investments in people that are currently working for them. Don't overlook them. Look at them and help them move up so that you have a better workforce. The training, some of the programs, the leadership trainings, those are extremely important to move people along.
Phil, did you want to say something?
Yes, thank you. As representing the Butler County Manufacturing Consortium, these things that I hear our commissioners talking about, my colleagues and peers in the manufacturing community in Butler, is absolutely a core focus and a core passion of the Butler County Manufacturing Consortium. And so I hear we talked soft skills, right? That's one of our focuses for 2020 in the consortium. So in the last couple of years, the consortium has held assemblies here at Butler High School, at Freeport, and I believe at Seneca Valley. I didn't attend the Seneca one, where we reached out to the juniors and seniors in those schools, giving them education on the opportunities and options that manufacturing will provide you, whether you go for a 4-year degree or whether you enter the workforce after school. The next step is touching on the soft skills we talked a little bit about before. What do employers expect from you? And right on the other, what can you expect from an employer in the manufacturing industry in Butler? And so we're all doing these things, and at times I feel like we're doing them independently, but we're all doing the same thing, and there's power in numbers, right? And I've heard all three commissioners speak about it, and I wrote down, I as co-chair of the manufacturing consortium, we want to work with the county, right? Again, power in numbers. And so if we're going to reach out to the county, how do we pull this all together in the state? Right? So just it's been questions in my mind, not frustration, but how do we bring this all together and we're all rowing the same boat in the same direction together because there's power there. So.
Thank you. Representative Rigby?
Thank you, Madam Chair. This goes back to the CTE, and we're talking about, I believe you said as freshmen they come in and tour, and I'm just wondering if we're not reaching them too late. When they come in as freshmen, they need to make a decision and they begin, and I know that the tours stop what you're doing here, but I'm thinking, maybe at 7th grade you make that tour, and it gives them an opportunity to see the multiple things that are available to them to at least think about, and then bring them back as that freshman, and at least it opens up to those students to see what is out there, what's actually out there, and gives them a little bit of time. It's like planting that seed, and that may help increase their want to be part of this. Thank you.
Well, and there's other ways we are doing that. We are reaching out at those younger levels as part of that process of the exposure to everything that's out there, and we are part of those discussions. But you're not, incorrect with that concept. That may be too late, and one of our districts has started to tour 8th instead of 9th. So it's kind of our trial. We're going to see how that works out, and my guess is that's going to work well. And I can see us, at the very minimum, moving that to an 8th grade, because that was exactly their response was, by 9th grade, it might be too late. They may have already set their path. So if you tour an 8th grade, they can make a better decision for their future. So and you do run into that area of it's too soon, they're not mature enough yet to really make a good decision, but then it could be too late because they've already, the mold may be cast. So we are looking at that, and this next year, we're going to see what those numbers are going to look like for them coming, and I think that's probably going to be the way we go, is going to be reaching out at the very minimum. But we still do things before that as well, because you're right, you can't wait. There's no doubt about it.
Representative Mostello?
Thank you, Chairwoman. This is a great discussion about education and what we have here in Butler County, and I hope my colleagues recognize really what we have out here. But other than, we talk a lot about finding employees. What other issues do employers have through the state? I mean, you've got a few of us here. If the issues you're facing out in Western Pennsylvania are the same out in Eastern Pennsylvania, but what is it that you ladies and gentlemen see that maybe we're not seeing as legislators, that maybe there's something we can help you with?
So, Marci, I was talking to you a little bit before. One of the things we really struggle with is 2-6 has facilities all over the United States. And when we look to expand in Pennsylvania, the enticement to expand in Pennsylvania is not there like other states. Florida will come at us, throw a ton of money at us, bring your manufacturing here. New York State, I mean, they just signed an agreement with Cree. If you don't know Cree makes light bulbs, but they also make silicon carbide devices that are going into cars, going into all kinds of electric vehicles and type applications. $1 billion. Now, I know they're not getting a full $1 billion from the state, but it's the state is working with them tightly to bring the manufacturing there. We tried to expand here about 2 years ago to bring stuff, and it was really complicated to figure out, is there anything that the state can help us with? They're like, well, we can give you a loan, but a company our size, we don't need a loan. We can get loans cheaper than the state can offer them to us. So, and then it's, well, we can help employees once you hire them, the training. Well, that's great too, but we really need something to help us with our business plans, because every time we do a business plan, it says, don't come to Pennsylvania, even though our headquarters is here. We have 500 people in Saxonburg. We have 100 people in Warrendale. We got 100 people over in Eastern Pennsylvania. We could double that in this state if we had ways to help to work with the state earlier and try to find ways to entice business here. I'm not just saying grants, but, help us. We got to put in $2 million worth of electricity into our facility to expand. That's not easy for us to swallow when the state of New York will give it to us for free. It's tough. It really is. And when we contact people to start the process, it's like, well, here's this document, fill it out, and we'll get back to you when we have time. It's not as easy as it is in other states, and I think that's limiting the state of Pennsylvania severely.
Mom of 4. Can everyone hear me? Do I need to use my mom voice? So I think we have a lot of the same struggles that Joyce has. And, earlier when she was talking about employees, I wanted to say, I'll fight you in the cul-de-sac for them. Really. And the programs are great. It's so nice to hear about all of the different opportunities that the kids have at the VOTEC and at BC3, but we need warm bodies now, desperately. And we are terrified. I know that you guys need people. I see that you all need staff. I see your ads in the paper. We're all competing for the same really limited pool of people. And our labor force is going to retire. The younger kids are coming in. I do think 9th grade is too late, having a 9th grader. I brought him, so Turby Twist is kind of misleading. That's our hair towel company. We also have a manufacturing plant called Pittsburgh Plastics. All of our machines are custom built. You can't learn how to make them somewhere else. You need to come in, be excited. I don't know too much about the K through 12 schools here up in Butler. I live in Allegheny County, but I remember looking back that wood shop and metal shop were some of the most fun classes and most interesting classes that I had. And I think as employers, we'd all be willing to support any projects, and maybe not, a $70,000 Recessa Annie, but get these kids excited about doing these jobs. Somebody has to work the assembly line. If you want to continue to have the job, somebody has to work the assembly line. We're not all going to be CAD designers and machinists and everything, and we have those too. And that might be something that you build up to. But it's a good, steady job. It can support a family. It provides benefits. And if we don't prepare the kids to go down that path, we're going to continue to do as we've done and continue to automate. And we're going to be forced to phase those jobs out. And I think if we want to continue to promote Made in America, then we need the support of the state, federal support, the labor pool. Get these kids excited. We'll come in. We'll show them cool stuff. They can see the path. Really get them excited. And general grievance, I don't know who has control of it. But you mentioned electric. If your electric goes out as much as our electric, I don't know how either of us are in business. It's horrible. And all of our machines electric. And I know a good bit of yours is. So our power goes out, we look out, is UPG out? Yep, they're out. Everybody sits around. Sometimes we have to send the workforce home just for it to come back on a half an hour later.
That was
consistent energy supply would be great in Connoquenessing Township.
Last year we had 7 major power outages during
Big
the
deal.
summer, and we have equipment. I'm anxious for everybody to see it, millions of dollars
Yeah.
worth of equipment that when the power
Can't
goes
just-
out unexpectedly, it causes
Big
damage like you can't believe. You're down for 24 hours, repairs need to be made, parts get blown up. So we're with Penn Power. I'm not certain how we can get a better electrical grid. That doesn't happen, but that's one of the struggles. Another thing I did want to mention before we run out of time was Madam Chairwoman had mentioned this was the unemployment compensation. It's tough being an employer. We don't ever lay anybody off. That's one thing I can say in 39 years of business. We have never laid a person off for lack of work. We will, most of the time it's been busy, but we always find work for somebody to do. And it's very, very difficult to get fired from our place because our goal is to train people to show up for work and such. But if they do, it's really tough as an employer to win a workers' compensation. They just are really against the employer, and you almost always lose, even if you've got sufficient grounds and warnings and such. So would love to see the referees be a little bit more employer friendly. But when people do get on unemployment, they get too much money. I know they have bills to pay, but right now and back when you couldn't find a job, but if they get 80% of what they make, that's basically what they make right now with taxes. So they are in no hurry to go look for a job most of the time. And right now with low unemployment, I know my sister lives in Boise, Idaho, they get about 60%. So when you lose your job or get laid off, you're out looking for a job the next day. And I'm sure employers here, if somebody comes in to interview with you and they're looking for their job because their unemployment's about to run out, you basically show them to the door if they waited to the last minute to start looking for a job. But would love to see that not be, I want to help, I don't want people to be out of job and not have money, but get them looking for a job the next day after they're laid off, because right now there's plenty of jobs. And all these people on unemployment compensation right now, I'll hire them tomorrow, send them in. But if they're going to stay on for 6 months, not only does it cripple the state, with the funds having to pay for that, but we just need to get them back into the workforce. So anything helpful there would be great as an employer, a little bit more employer friendly.
Is it on? Thank you, Madam Chairman, and also Marci for the invitation to come here to an interesting topic. I'm from bare metallurgical, and quite frankly, a lot of what you're saying, we're not having those types of problems at our facility. Right now, it's more of a trade issue that we're having with foreign competition. However, I can attest to some of the problems that we used to have, and I'm going to probably touch on multiple topics here. So for instance, the WEDNET program, that's a fabulous program. We never left money on the table. We actually would call the director and say, do you have some extra money for us? And she would come up with some, and we would use it. We do a lot of training in-house. Corporate pays for it. We recently engaged with BC3 with our laboratory technician. He, I believe, went through a certificate program. He's not degreed. Only the management have degrees in our facility. All the others are pretty much from high school, so if you want to dub them blue collar, so be it. But we have a lot of tenure at our company. No one leaves. Once you get hired by Bare Metallurgical, you don't leave unless you're terminated. Our tenure's probably a minimum of 15 years or more. Our benefits are very competitive. AK actually hires anybody that does leave our facility because it's a manufacturing company, and we do training for forklifts. I mean, we do train the trainers, so we've actually sent our supervisors out or managers out to get those types of certificates, even OSHA, and then they come back in and we do very thorough training. We do toolbox talks every day. We do, the management does housekeeping audits out in the plant, and we're engaged very well with our hourly employees. So everything's good. It's just we're low on production right now. We could use a lot more of material to come to our facility. Unfortunately, it is part of the steel industry and the trade, and it's going overseas. But outside of that, if I may mention about ethics, when I was in charge of hiring, and I'm sort of disappointed here because, Donna, I'm a warrior from Montauk, so we'll take it out in the parking lot after this. But I don't see, where?
It's around the corner, you can't see it.
Okay. Them's fighting words.
Yeah, Spiker was over the his bra.
But back in the day, I was anxious to hire farmers because farmers really brought the work ethic, and it was amazing. We had one gentleman, who put in a couple of hours before he actually came to our facility. And when he left our facility, he had more hours at home to work. So I don't know if there's necessarily that culture anymore. When it comes to student debt, and I'll say, I'm not going to age myself, but when I went through high school, VOTEC was a bad word. It's prestigious now, and quite frankly, I think you really do need to touch on the parents. So when you're touring the 7th and 8th graders, do a parental tour as well, because I think, quite frankly, what's the likelihood of a parent and a child going to the VOTEC together and starting their own business? Because that's the way of the entrepreneurs now, to start their own business. Let's get them some experience under their belt, and then they go out and they become the workforce, and they're hiring and whatnot. So I can honestly say I'm the first bachelor's degree in my family, even in my mother's side of the family, all of them, and my father's side of the family. So there is a change right now. And then lastly, if I may speak, that it is a different culture out there, whether you're called a millennial, a boomerang, or whatever you want to. I'm actually a boomerang. I lived out in Enola for about 5 years, so I was in Cumberland County, but I made my way back home. And I don't know if I mentioned, I'm with the company for 28 years. So I've dug down deep, and I have a niece right now who's going to PSU, and she's going into biotechnical engineering. So, Dan, I may want to talk to you later if that's something I can tell her. But the student debt, and it's because the parents want that 4-year degree or whatever, and then not only that, but the children, look at the expenses that they have right now that they've got to cover on their own. I didn't have a car until I got my first job out of college, and I bought it myself. And I think now children are given cars in their high school years. They have telephones. They have so much more right now. So their base income is so much higher that they have to support themselves. I mean, high maintenance. What is that a category of people right now? High maintenance. So I wish you luck. Bare Metallurgical has helped in the past. We're here, hopefully going into the future, and we want to participate as best as we can.
That's great. I just wanted to say one thing. The one person in this room we forgot to introduce, and I forgot to introduce her, is my niece. She's home from school, and she's here on spring break. She could be anywhere, but she's at the Butler Votech because I dragged her here. And the reason I did bring her here, and she knows this, I just wanted her to hear from employers. As she's making her way out of college, she'll be graduating this year, and she'll be doing some other things after graduation, obviously. But I just wanted her to hear young people that don't have this opportunity to hear from employers, to hear from business leaders, to hear from the legislators, that what's out there, that what your future looks great. And your future looks really good in Western Pennsylvania. So I don't know if there's an Army base in PA, but come back. But there's a lot going on here, and that's the reason why I brought her here. And I'm sorry I didn't introduce you earlier, Anchor. I'm sorry. Thank you.
Thank you. And I want to just take a moment and say thank you to all of you for participating and making this so interactive. This is what it's all about. And I believe that we're going to kick it over to the director. You're going to let us know what's next, and then we will be heading to our tours.